Hi, in this video we are looking at how to explore and deploy the many models Foundry have to offer and understand the different deployment types, as it can be quite confusing to be honest. I will show you how to deploy the models you have available, how to get access to restricted models, and how to request more quota. So let's get started. If we look at the model catalog, you will see there are over 10,000 LLMs models to choose from. But in real life, unless you have a very niche scenario, you will only be dealing with a handful of the model providers and the model types. Foundry's most known models come from OpenAI, Anthropic, xAI, Mistral, and DeepSeek. The only big brand missing is Google Gemini, but that is to be expected as Google and Microsoft are competitors in both the cloud hosting and the AI space. Microsoft themselves also have a few models on their own, but nothing revolutionary. There's one special model called the Model Router. It, as such, is not a model, but instead a collection of models that, based on the question, can choose simpler or advanced models on the fly. I had a mixed result with this, so I tend to not use it personally, but it's an interesting idea. And behind the scenes, you can go in and choose which models it have available to route to. Not all models are made for the same purpose. Some do text, some do images, some do embeddings, and some do speech. So it's a good thing to go in and check the capabilities of each model as you go. It's also not all models that work with the agents and workflow services. And since those are the ones we are gonna focus on in this series, we will tend to stick with these models as you see on the screen. Looking at a specific model, a description is there and a link to the pricing. While this screen is okay, I tend to instead go to the provider's own specific site as it gives more details and capabilities. So here's, for example, what ChatGPT 5 have, and we can see features and pricing directly. I normally only use models that can do at least tool calling or function calling, as it's some kind called, and structured output, as I tend to use these features all the time. Beyond that, I look for at least an embedding model for vector store, and then I choose non-reasoning chat models and reasoning chat models for the more advanced workloads. These are my go-to models as of December 2025, where ChatGPT 4.1 and 4.1 Mini is my non-reasoning, 5.1 and 5 Mini is for reasoning, and text embedding 3 small is for embeddings. I am slowly getting rid of GPT 4.1 as it's quite pricey compared to how old it is. But it's really nice when you just need to set up a model without needing to configure all the reasoning settings and so on. Now let's dive into how to deploy a model. And you do that by clicking the model in the details page and on the top choosing the deploy button. When you press that, there's a default settings and a custom settings. I will very much recommend you choose custom settings because if you just press default, it just creates the model with no questions asked. So it's better to go with the custom model, in my opinion. And what you see is this sidebar that will pop up next to the deploy, where you give a deployment name. And this is special for Azure in that you can choose your own name for the deployment, while, for example, in OpenAI, if you need to reference ChatGPT 5.1, you need to give this name. But you could call this mine model if you want to. But I recommend that you don't change these names because these are the ones the different providers show in their spec sheets and so on. Next, you choose a deployment type, and there are 4 different types. There's something called global standard, meaning that you get the cheapest pricing, the pricing you normally see on the spec sheets. But if you can't rely on that every call you do will stay within the Azure region that you have chosen. For a little more price, you can do data zone standard, which is within the Azure region's data zone. And then there is provisioned version of this where you get more reliability on your models, but you pay by the hour for each of them, while global standard and data zone standard, you don't, you only pay when you use tokens. Beyond that, you can choose a model version. There's often only one, but some of the older ones have older versions. And then some upgrade policies that it will automatically go to the newest version when they become available. Then you choose your tokens per minute, and you might feel that you don't have enough tokens per minute. And if you don't, you need to go with quotas and raise them, as we will talk about in a little bit. The final thing is guardrails. There's the default at a default v2, and you can make your own guardrails as well, which we'll cover in a later video. So once you do this, you deploy it, and you end up with a model. Certain models you can't press the deploy button on. And that is because some models are behind registration, meaning that you need to, it's often models that are under heavy use or very resource intensive, because Microsoft in general, like everyone else, have a hard time keeping up with providing servers for all this load. So some of them are behind a request access. And when you press request access, you are taken to a website where you fill out a form. You need to fill out your address details, your subscription ID, and why you need access to the model, and so on. And it's a bit of a lottery, to be honest. Sometimes I have received, after requesting access, a day after I get access, some I never get an answer back. And even if I'm on my private or system, or I work with a company that have dedicated Microsoft contacts and so on. The contacts I've spoken to say it's a come first, come serve model, which I don't believe. When a Fortune 500 company comes along, they will probably push them up the length. I have also seen that sometimes I would need to request not here for a month, request again, and then I suddenly get it. So it's not like it always works. If you don't hear something in a couple of weeks, try and request again. That is my recommendation. Or at least speak to some Microsoft contacts that you have. But it is a real lottery when we have so few resources at the moment. Once you have your models, you can go to the Build tab, and then in the Models section here, it will list your default different models. And if you press them, you go into the playground, but also go to the details where you can edit, so you can change the number of tokens and so on. You can delete your model, not that it costs you anything just by having it around. And again, if you find that you use a model and you constantly run out of tokens, you might want to request a quota. And a quota is again the a website that you go to, fill out a form, tell why do you need it, how many thousands of tokens do you need instead. And again, this is also a lottery. I have tried the worst, trying to get more tokens for one of the models back in January, and it took 3 months before we got it. But I've also tried going in here and the next day having many more tokens than I actually requested. So again, go out early getting the quota if you need to go live at some point, and ask for a lot, because it can be really, really difficult. And I have scenarios right now where we need to go to less capable models because we simply cannot get the quota for the high ones. But that is everything about models and model deployment. See you in the next one.